say this. One of the most unfortunate things about Charlie Kirk's death, I think, is the emergence of more extreme content creators who have sort of come to prominence in an attempt, and I would argue a mad dash, to fill the vacuum and the void left behind by the empty space at Charlie Kirk's desk. Now, one of these individuals, the one who I actually am most upset about his claim to fame in the midst of all this, is Nick Fuentes himself. Now, part of this is actually the mainstream media's fault, because they were saying for a minute that the person who shot Charlie Kirk was a Groyper, and Groyper's a follower of Nick Fuentes, by the way. And so I think, you know, that sort of rose Nick Fuentes's profile in a way that was quite most assuredly undeserved. Here, let me look this up here. Wired Nick Fuentes. Because I'm just wondering if Wired released a video about Nick Fuentes, but it looks like they did not. I know Wired has a YouTube channel.
Data breaches happen,
but I mean, they're not entirely the most political channel in the world. So anyways, let's go through this article from Wired. They did a profile of him. Why did they even do a profile of him? This is not the type of guy you should really do a profile of, in my opinion. I mean, you can if you want, but at this moment, I feel like the only thing it does is raise his profile. I understand it from a journalistic perspective, but I just not a big fan of it. You could do a profile of Ben Shapiro. Ain't nobody doing profiles of Ben Shapiro. Go do a profile of Ben Shapiro. Go do a profile of, I don't know, Steven Crowder. Go do a profile of Tim Pool. There are other people you do profiles of. But anyways, Nick Fuentes' plan to conquer America. For years, influencer Nick Fuentes was too extreme even for MAGA. Now he's working his way into the mainstream and has a plan for his secret followers to seize the levers of power. White nationalist. Okay, at least they're calling him a white nationalist. White nationalist live streamer Nick Fuentes finds it very difficult to hide his contempt for his own followers, known as Groypers, even when they are sending him money. I censored, but can you screw off and rage quit? Nick Fuentes muttered during a live stream on the alternative streaming platform Rumble earlier this month. Oh, did he move from Cozy TV to Rumble? I thought that he was the Cozy TV. That was like his thing, I thought. The anti-Semitic, anti-trans, misogynistic, and racist influencer was responding to a follower who sent him a $10 super chat message offering advice on how to treat the cold Fuentes was suffering from. By the way, I do appreciate that they had sources for these different links for the anti-Semitism, the anti-trans stuff, the misogynistic stuff, and the racist stuff. I will say that the only thing I like about Nick Fuentes is that he's so stupid that he will say like some of the most ridiculous things that's impossible to not laugh at. Like, hold on. This is actually one of my favorites. One of my favorite clips of all time on the internet. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, okay, here it is. This is one of my favorite clips on the internet. It's just because it's so stupid. Like, okay, look at this.
What, people calling me gay because I've never had a girlfriend?
They ended up being correct, by the way.
I think if anything, it makes me less gay. If anything, it makes me not gay. As opposed to less gay. Not that there's any gay, but it makes me not gay. Well, because think about it this way. You know, gay people do date girls all the time. Real. And when I said on Elijah Schaefer's show, and they said, have you ever been in a romantic relationship? Have you ever had sex with a girl? And I said, no. If you name searched me on Twitter, as I always do, all these gay people are coming out and saying, I've had more girlfriends than Nick. I've had sex with more girls than Nick. So like I said last week, not only is that thinking flawed, But actually, it's the reverse. That actually makes me really more heterosexual than anybody. If we're really being honest, never having a girlfriend, never having sex with a woman, really makes you more heterosexual. Because honestly, dating women is gay. Having sex with women is gay.
Yeah.
And having sex with men is gay. And you know, it's all gay. And if you want to know the truth, the only really straight heterosexual position is to be an asexual incel.
No.
That's it. So that's all there is.
This is like so insanely stupid. It's like, well, you know, the only real way to preserve the rule of law is to break the law. It's like, oh, this is ridiculous. But that's the only purpose that he serves, right? Is to be well, I wish this was the only purpose that he served, was to be a lolcow that people just laughed at. It's kind of unfortunate that he's taken more seriously than that clip would have you take him. But let's continue, because there's actually more to this article. Groypers are a group of extremely loyal supporters of Fuentes' white nationalist and Christian nationalist ideology, which he describes as America First. Their leader's undisguised disdain for them, which at times edges into outright hatred and name-calling, is part of his appeal. Younger viewers in particular view his unvarnished responses and unwavering views on immigration, Israel, and Donald Trump. He's against them all, as genuine and authentic, especially compared to what other right-wingers offer up. I mean, it's true, but I mean, you know, I think that Hitler was authentic as well. You know, you know, authenticity is a virtue that only gets you so far. You know, now Fuentes is looking to leverage his rapidly growing audience in a new level of influence among more mainstream figures in the GOP and MAGA movement to build a nationwide secret society of sorts, which he believes will help bring his vision of an America dominated by white Christians to fruition. The country overall, I think, is closer to accepting our position than they were 10 years ago, Fuentes said in a recent live stream. I think we're kind of still waiting for that inflection point, and once that happens, I think it happens all very quickly. After a decade of live streaming hate-filled diatribes in which he has said that certain times of assaults are not a big deal, denied the Holocaust and compared himself to Hitler, Fuentes believes he and the white nationalist movement generally have very little to show for it, which is kind of true. It says, but in the wake of the murder of the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk, things have been happening very quickly. For the last 6 years, Fuentes had relentlessly attacked the Turning Point USA co-founder, focusing especially on his support for Israel. Fuentes also repeatedly called out Kirk's unwillingness to debate him. In the aftermath of Kirk's death, Fuentes struck a more conciliatory tone, urging followers not to pick up arms, but also repeated that he believes Kirk was, quote, complicit in the Israeli capture of the right wing for a very long time. See, and this is one of the things, and we actually even saw this from the Destiny clip, where I think that some of these people start getting scared by their own followers, and they get scared of what they've created, right? So I think that probably showed him it was certainly possible that it wasn't true, but it was possible that a Groyper was the one who murdered Charlie Kirk. And so he's like, whoa, I don't really want to be responsible for, you know, widespread death and carnage all across the country. So, you know, I can understand him changing his tone when he realizes, you know, the likelihood is rather high that he has been contributing to the type of rhetoric which has been causing people to become so extremely polarized to the point of condoning violence. Let's continue. Rather than damaging Fuentes' popularity, Kirk's death has accelerated it. His X following has grown by almost 175,000 since Kirk's death, and he has seen his following on Rumble increase by more than 100,000. His live stream commemorating the death of Kirk was among his most watched by far, with over 2.5 million views. I didn't know he was getting that many views. That's crazy. That's disgusting. 2.5 million views on a Nick Fuentes stream? How does that even happen? Does Rumble really have that many viewers? Because that's the only platform he's on, I think, for on-demand videos. Cozy TV is just for streaming. I don't even know. Is Cozy TV still up? Cozy.tv. I don't know if I'd be able to show it just because of how extreme some of the content is on there. Yeah, the platform is still up. Nick Fuentes is on there. Hold on, wait a second. Bro, is this Kick? Why does this look like Kick? It looks the exact same as Kick. That's crazy. But yeah, no, he's still on Cozy and Rumble, but it seems like that's it. So he got 2.5 million views on Rumble. That's absurd and unfortunate. His live stream the following Monday discussing who's responsible for Kirk's death also saw a higher than normal viewership. In the space of less than an hour, Fuentes earned over $5,500 from the top 5 super chat donations made by supporters, according to a review by Wired. Fuentes did not respond to repeated requests for comment. Of course, he didn't respond. A generational run. For years, Fuentes was viewed as a pariah by people within the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. Still is. But I mean, unfortunately, he's getting more play. The Valuetainment folks had him, I think, on the Patrick David show or whatever. Not great. He has done multiple episodes of the Alex Jones show before. Also not great because, you know, at least I think Alex Jones isn't anti-Semitic. He's a conspiracy theorist, but he's not anti-Semitic. So it's unfortunate he's decided to cozy up with Nick Fuentes. For years, Fuentes has been viewed as a pariah by people within the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. I don't think anybody should be spending any time with Nick Fuentes. Then House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said in 2022, days after Trump had dined with the anti-Semitic musician and fashion mogul Ye and the America First leader at his Mar-a-Lago resort. I think it's fair to point out that Trump didn't really know who Nick Fuentes was. An aide about 10 to 15 minutes after Nick Fuentes and Ye showed up at the dinner, an aide like went and whispered in his ear, basically said, hey, you know, he's anti-Semite, right? And then kicked him out. So they didn't even really get to finish a full course with Trump. Unfortunately, this sort of insinuates a sort of alliance between Trump and the far right that just doesn't exist. Bray Leno said, I have to read the Mein Kampf for English class, bro. Why? That makes no sense. It was written in German. You have to explain why. That doesn't make any sense at all. But over the course of the last year, coinciding with Elon Musk's decision to reinstate Fuentes' X account, his influence has skyrocketed, despite or perhaps because of his criticism of Trump's failed campaign promises around the Epstein case and mass deportations, as well as his support for Israel. He is on a generational run. I don't care what anyone says. He is on fire right now, comedian Vincent Oshana said while appearing on the podcast of right-wing influencer Patrick David, who interviewed Trump last year. Fuentes has been praised, albeit usually with heavy caveats by others, by among others, Manosphere Myron Gaines. Well, Myron Gaines is anti-Semite as well. I'm surprised that he would give any caveats. Right-wing commentator Dinesh D'Souza. Oh man, it's been a while since I heard that name. And live streamer Aiden Ross, who hosted Trump during last year's presidential campaign. Well, Aiden Ross is just stupid. Fuentes, well, sorry, that was a little extreme. Aiden Ross is both literally and politically illiterate, right? So whenever Aiden Ross says anything about politics, I'm not expecting him to understand even the things that's coming out of his own mouth. Okay, maybe that's a more accurate way to put it, right? I don't think Aiden Ross is like the stupidest person in the world. It could be true. I just haven't seen him take an IQ test, and it's a little bit of an ad hominem attack. But my point in saying that, and I'm sorry, I don't like doing ad hominem attacks. My point in saying that was that Aiden Ross's understanding of politics is so poor that I would not glean anything from his endorsement of anyone. So, Fuentes has also been at the center of a very public fight with mainstream right-wing media figures Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Carlson called Fuentes a weird little gay kid in his basement and suggested that he was part of a deep state plot to undermine real right-wing figures. Most observers, especially his own supporters, concluded that Fuentes came out on top. Interestingly enough, I actually suspect that Tucker Carlson might be a Russian asset, but that's a story for another day. Young Trump supporters listen to Nick Fuentes, and if they don't listen to him, they listen to the people who have been influenced by him, says Michael Edison Hayden, an extremism researcher and author of the forthcoming book Strange People on the Hill, which follows a small town's takeover by a white nationalist group. He's absolutely influential on immigration, on anti-Semitism, and optics, whether establishment Republicans want to admit that or not. Born in 1998, Fuentes grew up in a well-off suburb of Chicago. By the time he was 18, a freshman in Boston University, he was already live streaming, launching what he would call America First with Nicholas J. Fuentes on YouTube. Having gained a cult following in February 2017, Fuentes brought his show to the Trump-aligned Right Side Broadcasting Network. The so-called alt-right of which he was a part, and Fuentes' brand of edgy nihilism specifically, fell apart in the wake of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in August 2017. At the time, Fuentes wrote on Facebook that the event, which resulted in the death of anti-fascist activist Heather Heyer, would unleash, quote, a tidal wave of white identity, something that at the time didn't happen. I don't even know what that would mean. So like a whole lot of people identifying as white? I don't understand. I mean, I'd have to see the clip in context, and I don't want to. Let's see how much more do we have in this. Okay, we still have a bunch here to go through. Fuentes returned to YouTube before he was banned from the platform in 2020 for violating the company's hate speech policies. He continued broadcasting a show on DLive, an alternative streaming platform, but was once again suspended indefinitely in 2021. He was in attendance outside the Capitol on January 6, 2021. He was captured on video speaking to supporters. One of the rioters inside the Capitol on the day was captured on video waving an America First flag. This is why I'm not a fan of the phrase America First, by the way, because while I do think that the policies in the United States of America should prioritize the United States of America, America First is too heavily associated with Nick Fuentes' movement for me to just bandy it about freely. So that's why I don't use it very much. Fuentes moved his show to a custom platform called Cozy TV that he built in collaboration with Alex Jones. Oh, I didn't know that he built that with Alex Jones. Interesting. More recently, he has found a welcoming home on Rumble, the alternative media platform that also hosts Donald Trump Jr.'s podcast. He has been backed financially by both Peter Thiel and a venture capitalist fund co-founded by Vice President J.D. Vance. Let's see here. Excuse me. Despite being suspended from most major social media platforms, last year Fuentes was reinstated on X by Musk, who wrote that he could stay on the platform, quote, provided he did not violate the law and let him be crushed by the comments and community notes, end quote. Rather than being crushed, Fuentes has seen his following skyrocket from 168,000 at the time his account was restored in May 2024 to almost 925,000 today. Well, we want them to have no clue. In a recent interview with Eric Orwell, one of the founders of a whites-only community in Arkansas, Fuentes complained that for all that has happened since Trump came to power, there are very few groups who are operating right now in the pro-white sphere. It's almost like, most people are not, racist, white supremacists, and white nationalists. He listed Jared Taylor's white nationalist American Renaissance Conference in VDare, a white nationalist group founded in 1999 by Peter Brimlow. Brimlow? That name is familiar. Hold on. What? That's crazy, yo. Wait, I had no idea. Okay, hold on. So Hannah Claire Brimlow, who was, I think, one of the best ever contributors, especially out of former cast and crew of Tim Cast IRL, Hannah Claire Brimlow used to be on there. Apparently, she is the daughter of Peter Brimlow, who formed an alt-right white nationalist group called VDARE in 1999. I had no idea that they were related. That's crazy. Yep, it says here, parents, Peter Brimlow. That's insane. That's wild. Let's see here. Fuentes also mentioned his own show in the Anti-Semitic Culture Wars magazine. But Fuentes believes that he and his Groyper army can change that, despite his growing influence within the GOP and Trump administration, as well as his rapidly rising support among young white men in America. Fuentes repeatedly said that in order for the movement to make an impact, it needs to operate in the shadows. No rallies, no protests. We don't need to show everybody how many of us there are, because the second we do, they will identify, isolate, and destroy us, Fuentes said on a recent live stream. I think in reality, it's just that they're not that popular in general. And they'll get laughed at. Oh, we're having an America First rally, and then like 10 people show up. Like, oh wow, what a popular, powerful group you have. I think that's the reality of the situation. It says here, we want them to have no clue. I've already read that actually. Fuentes says that he travels the country constantly to meet his supporters, who have started different groups and organizations across the country, everything from campus groups to book clubs, all founded on the racist anti-Semitic doctrine he preaches on his live streams. He described his movement as a tech startup and a patchwork that eventually we're going to knit together over time, adding that he saw Orwell's whites-only community in Arkansas as part of that network. That's just gross. Ugh. That's just gross. There are certainly Groypers within the administration, and I believe Fuentes, when he says that he has contacts within the administration, including probably pretty high up, says Hannah Geist. That was hard to understand. An extremism researcher with the Southern Poverty Law Center. There are signs that figures familiar with Fuentes' movement play roles in the administration. Back in May, for example, Trump nominated Paul Ingrassia, who at one point allegedly grilled career FBI agents about their loyalty to Trump, according to a recent lawsuit, to head up the Office of Special Counsel. Ingrassia attended an impromptu rally in June 2024 after Fuentes had been denied an entry to a Turning Point USA conference. Ingrassia later claimed to have been unaware of who was speaking at the rally. However, he wrote an ex post at the time condemning the decision by Turning Point USA to reject Fuentes. It's unclear at this point if a vote to confirm Ingrassia's appointment will happen. So it does not seem particularly confirmed that Ingrassia actually is a Groyper. It's also possible to say, like, hey, Nick Fuentes should be allowed to speak without being a Groyper yourself. I'm quite sure. Oh, it hasn't been deleted, actually. It says here, oh, so this is in response to this video from Brian Krasenstein. The text of that is, thank you. Anti-Semites Nick Fuentes and Jay Shields were just kicked out of TPUSA. I remember these clips. I can't remember if I reacted to them or not. While I disagree with Turning Point USA on pretty much everything under the sun, this was absolutely the right move. No one in their right mind wants to associate with these bigoted hate mongers. This year, when you have one of these guys praising this as the right move, you know it was an awful decision. Well, he's just being reactionary there. Conservatives should always uphold the First Amendment and allow for dissonant voices, especially those that abide by the venue's rules, which was the case here. Well, yeah, he's not supporting anti-Semitism at all, right? This is a pretty bad paragraph. They don't back up their claim at all that he's a Groyper. So I guess they just lied? That's surprising. Why would the mainstream media ever do that? Ingrassia in the White House did not respond for requests for comment. On one live stream earlier this month, a young supporter told Fuentes that he was getting some of his friends into the movement and said that it was, quote, growing at an exponential rate, end quote, adding that you have the youth in this country sold on this movement. While this may be an exaggeration, Fuentes' young supporters are sold to the point where they are willing to fund him and his ambitions. In addition to what he raises with super chats, Fuentes also has a subscription service called America First Plus. For $15 a month, subscribers can get full access to the full America First archive. $30 a month gets you the archive plus AI-powered search. For the most dedicated gropers, there is a $100 a month tier that also gets you access to a group chat that Fuentes is a part of. In a recent video criticizing the people who are part of the group chat, Fuentes claims that he's got 400 subscribers in the $100 a month tier, which would amount to $50,000 a year. Fuentes also earns money from his range of America First merchandise, including $40 baseball caps and $25 mugs. I'll be honest with you, I've made a lot of money this summer, Fuentes said recently. Yeah, I got a lot of support this month, this year, lots of views, lots of followers. These followers are helping to get the word out. Fuentes live streams 5 times a week on Rumble, where his videos typically rack up hundreds of thousands of views. Clips from his shows are quickly spread by supporters on many other platforms, including X, Instagram, and TikTok, where they can quickly amass millions of views. Fuentes' disdain for many of his supporters appears to have no impact on his popularity, but the 27-year-old is clear that what he refers to as the Grug-level supporters are not what is needed in order for his movement to take control. Instead, Fuentes speaks about attracting elite human capital, supporters who will then become part of an officer class of high intelligent entrepreneurial people. Once they get 5,000 of these guys, those are going to be the party officials, party apparatchiks in, as an analogy, Fuentes said, I'm kind of interested in inspiring those people, indoctrinating those people. They watch a show, they get the ideas, they get the inspiration, they kind of take a project into their own hands. I mean, you know what? I was criticizing this at the beginning, but this is actually good journalism, right? It sort of just breaks down who Nick Fuentes does, honestly and fairly, and sort of explains how he wants to transform the country. I don't think that he'll be successful, but you know, I'm glad that they're sort of exposing this, because I think, especially considering how popular he's getting, I think it's only fair for his methods and motives to be exposed. And I think that an article like this is probably one of the best ways to get that job done.